What is up, world? Matty Beebs here, the cinematographer. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to be breaking down the cinematography, or more or less talking about the cinematography of the Avengers Infinity War trailer. Now, these are a few shots that I liked and that kind of stood out to me, so let's get into it. Alright, so first off, we're going to jump into the scene with Thanos. I love this scene. He jumps right out of the portal, so this is basically what that scene is illustrating. And I have all the house lights on so we can see what lights we're using. So let's take a look at what lights I'm using to light this scene. So hanging on this truss, I have 6 2K space lights, and I have all of the lights set to 100% except for this one and this one here. They're set to 200%. I wanted to try to keep that contrast, kind of a shadow side on this side of the face, which is why these two lights up here are set at a lower value than the rest. That is giving us a nice ambient light for the entire scene. And the main winter chicken dinner lights are going to be from this book light. Lighting this book light, I've got 2 RE5K lights that are bouncing into presumably a white muslin or a ultra bounce. And then from there, that light is being diffused into what would be maybe a half grid, quarter grid, silk, whatever it is that you prefer using. And then also we have a modifier on there to help control and shape that light and keep it on our subject, which is Thanos right here. That's going to create that nice soft key light. And matter of fact, let's turn off these house lights here. Cool. Alright, so now that the house lights are off, we see our book light coming into effect. This side of Thanos' face being lit, which is our key light. Our other lights we have here, the space lights coming into play as well, giving us some nice ambient lighting. Otherwise, this side of the face would be totally in darkness. So this little eye light that we have right here, which is very crucial to the scene, I think, by the aperture LS. I'm using this very close to the camera and very low, at a very low angle, to illustrate that eye light. And I think that the eye light speaks to like kind of evil within, kind of creeping up through Thanos. And we know that there's something evil going on. Typically a bottom eye light shows sadness, but I think you can also use it for terror and scaring people, or just portraying like evil. I think back to the days that I was, camping with family, and someone was telling a scary story. They had a flashlight and they put it below their chin, and the light would be coming from below. So I think that, to me, that's how I read this image, and I like the bottom eye light. So that's how I'm lighting this entire scene. I got 6 space lights, 1 eye light, and then also our book light, who is being the main money maker for this scene right here. Looking nice. Cool. Alright, so let's go on to the next one. Alright, Thanos in flames. I really like this shot because it's being lit by basically what I would call practicals, the fire within the scene. So let's turn on the house lights really quickly, and let's take a look at how I lit this scene, or how I would approach lighting this scene. So hanging over top, we have our truss, which actually only has 1 space light this time. It is a 2K space light. And then lighting our background, or what would be like a green screen or a blue screen, would be 3 RE/S60s. And the reason why you want to have 3 is you want to light that background evenly. You don't want there to be any dark spots, so you try to fill that background with nice even lighting. Our backlights, which I'm using 2 aperture LS lights, and these lights, I look at them like a funnel. You see that both of these lights here are being both shot on each side of Thanos' face, which is going to give us that contrast in the middle of his face, which is right here. So we see where the lights are coming from in the frame, which is the fire on the edges of the frame. And we know that when we see the light that is hitting his face, it registers like, oh, it makes sense, right? It's coming from the fire. So I think it's a great use of practicals. Now, having 2 lights on each side of Thanos' face creates this contrast here. We have shadows in the middle of his face, and we still have that bottom eye light, which I use another aperture light for, and you just have it close to the camera and you have it very low. And normally when you're doing eye lights, you don't want to have it very bright, as obviously it's going to fill this side of his face with light. You just really want to have just enough light to create that eye light. So that is how I would approach this scene. This is exactly how I would light it if I was given the task. Alright, so the Captain America scene, which I think was one of the easier scenes to light. In lighting a silhouette, you really just want to light the background, which I have these 2 RE/S60s lighting this wall here, and really you don't have too much light on your subject, which is going to create that silhouette. And then off to the side, I put this Source 4 light shooting through 2 floppies on the floor. I saw this streak of light in the trailer, and I mean, I don't know if it was really there, but if it was there indeed, this is how I would put that line there. I just shoot a nice hard light through 2 floppies, creating a line of light. Alright, so now that the house lights are off, you can actually see the lights coming into play. When we look through the camera, we see that we do have our silhouette achieved. Our background is lit and our subject is in full shadow. Granted, I know in this view here, we see the light from the source 4 poking through. So when you're in camera and you're filming a silhouette, you want to expose for the light and keep your subject darker. That's how you're going to create that silhouette. It's going to separate your subject from the background very nicely. And I think this was a relatively easy scene to shoot. If given the task, this is how I would approach it. Just light the background, expose for the background, and then your subject is now in full silhouette. All right, and the last scene is Loki. It's probably my favorite shot of the trailer just because there's a lot of colors. So let's go over the lights and see exactly how I would light this if I were given the task to. We've got this truss here. Hanging from it, we have a RA-S30 shooting through what would be like a silk or a quarter grid, half grid, whatever is gonna give you that proper light exposure, giving us a nice soft blue light from up top that we see. And then the backlight here, we're using a nice little RE300 hanging on a C-stand and a boom arm. It's going to give us a nice backlight. Our last light, which is our red light coming from below, I'm using the Aperture LS light, and as you can see, it's giving us a nice little red hue. Let me turn off these house lights. You'll be able to see where exactly the lights are hitting. Perfect. Awesome. So now you can see this bottom light coming in and shooting that red light on his face. And if we shift over here, you can see the different colors, which help signify how mischievous Loki is and how probably undecided he'll be in this movie. Cool. And what's giving us this nice little bottom eye light here is going to be the Tesseract. Loki could have been holding this Tesseract in any other way. I think there was significance with him holding it lower, that low bottom eye light again. And like I said before, I think that it speaks to kind of the evil within creeping up through our character. We can visually see that there is a uprising about to happen. Awesome. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the little breakdown / conversation that I have started. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly how they lit each particular scene, but if I were given the task, this is how I would light it. I've always been trying to learn how to read an image. I think that's my biggest thing as a cinematographer, is always learning and striving to learn how to read an image, meaning how can I look at this picture, how can I look at this movie and figure out where the lights are coming from and what exactly do those lights mean. What does, you know, a bottom eye light mean? What does a backlight mean? And, you know, how do these things all come together to help push the narrative? So I think this was a really fun exercise. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't. And if you think I'm wrong about anything, drop it down in the comments below. I probably am, but let's talk about it. Let's get this conversation going. And I'm excited to see this movie just like you guys are, I'm sure. Maybe we'll do this again. But until then, go ahead and do a super jump on that like button if you want to see some more content like this. Go ahead and subscribe and follow me on Instagram. This is kind of where this video idea came from. I posed the question to my followers. This is something that you guys can interact with me and you guys can be a part of the decision making of the videos that I make. So follow me on Instagram and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.